that. Fantastic.
Margaret, excuse me. Is my audio okay? Can you hear me fine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Janet.
So welcome everybody to our May 10th meeting. This is the first general meeting of your newly elected Whiteaker Community Council. My name is Margaret and I am the newly elected chair. I've been with the council for about 4 or 5 years. Normally we wouldn't really do this, but I'd just like to take a second and have all the council members go around and say hello. And introduce yourself and what your role is.
I'm Janet Ayers, candidate for Ward 7, 34-year resident here in the Whiteaker Ward 7 area. Good evening. Thank you for the forum, Whiteaker Community Council. Thank you.
Thank you for being there. And Whiteaker Community Council members, board members. How about we start with Thea?
Hi guys. So I am been an at-large member for I have no idea how long, and I have been the Parks and Safety Liaison. So that means I call and nag the parks when they get bad, and I call the city and nag them when they get bad. And in a few minutes, I'll give you an update on what's going to go on with the tracks next week, because they're getting really bad again. So I'll give you an update in a minute, but thanks for everybody being here.
And why don't you pass the torch, Thea?
Saoirse, our vice chair.
Hello, everyone. My name is Saoirse. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the vice chair of the Whiteaker Community Council. I was an at-large board member last year, and I also am a co-owner and the market director for the Whiteaker Community Market in the Whiteaker. And I will pass it on to.
Thanks, Saoirse. My name's Claire Roth. I am the secretary with Whiteaker Community Council. Welcome, everybody. I will pass it on to Gail.
Thank you, Claire. My name is Gail. I use she, her pronouns, and I am an at-large member of the Whiteaker Community Council. I apologize for my video being off, but my camera is broken and it ends up looking like some sort of crazy, scary fractal thing, and I didn't want you to be subjected to that. So thank you so much, and I will pass it to Derek.
Hello, everybody. Derek David, owner of Jerry and Walt's Complete Auto Care in the Whiteaker neighborhood. Born and raised in Eugene, Oregon, and spent a lot of years in the Whiteaker area. And I've been a part of the board. I'm at large. This will be my second term, and I appreciate everybody supporting us as we move forward. I am going to I'm looking around the board. It's like Hollywood Squares. Julie?
I think it's a nod.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Anand. I've been living in Whiteaker since 1989. I've been on the board since about 94 with a couple-year gap so I could go to college and get a nursing degree. I am currently the chair of the Whiteaker Community Council's Public Health and Safety Committee meeting, which will have its own Zoom meeting next Wednesday at 6 o'clock, just before the board meeting. You're all invited. We do fun things. I don't see any other board members right offhand.
Right. I think we got everybody. So that's great. We always have a public comment that lasts about 10 minutes. We're pretty close to being on time. And so just so that you know, so Saoirse, the vice chair, is going to be she's co-running the meeting tonight. So Saoirse, can you explain to people when it comes time to talk to the candidates, how they will ask a question and how it will work, getting their name in the queue and all of that?
Absolutely. So just a couple of requests as we go throughout the meeting. We ask that unless you are actively the person in queue and speaking, that you keep your microphone muted. This is important for background feedback, and so we can all hear each other clearly. How the queue is going to work tonight for asking questions. You can either raise your hand physically. You can use the raise your hand feature with the reactions in the chat. Or you can message in the chat that you would like to be added to the queue. Margaret is demonstrating how you raise your hand right now. Thank you, Margaret. Once you do one of those things, I will add you to the queue, and that queue will be in the chat.
Yeah, and please, everyone in the meeting, make sure that Saoirse gets your name and information. If you live in the Whiteaker work owned property, that way you get in you can vote in the next election. Okay, fantastic. So let's we'll get this party started. We always have 10 minutes for public comment with every meeting. So do we have any public comment tonight? And Saoirse will be taking she'll be doing the time clock for us. Thea, I know you have something to say.
I always have something to say. So per Mayor Venice and Sarah Maderi and all my complaining, I am going to be meeting with both of them. Also, Matt Rodriguez from Public Works, a representative from EPD, and then Sean Bishop, who is the lone Union Pacific officer. And we are going to be looking at the railroad tracks. The trash there has gotten over the top. Union Pacific keeps filing no trespass, and it's not getting acted on. And it's getting really bad. I've been in the Whiteaker 27 years now, and up until a month ago, I only had 3 thefts off my property. And in the last month, I've had 3 thefts. So now we're at 6. So, and I noticed we have a few cars that are coming down Grand Street trying to make some deals of drugs. So we've got a dealer back in the neighborhood, folks. So be aware. If there is anything in particular you'd like me to bring up to the mayor and the city manager and our public works, please feel free to send me an email. I'll put it in my email in the chat for everyone to see. I will be meeting with all of them on Wednesday. And hopefully we're going to not only take a tour of the tracks, but we're going to walk through the neighborhood. We did this a couple of years ago and it was very effective. So we're going to do it again because we've lost a few businesses, folks. And we have a few others that are considering leaving. I lost a tenant of 16 years last month, and part of it was what's happening in our neighborhood. So we have to figure out how to work together on this. And thank you, councilor candidates, for all coming tonight. Really appreciate it.
Do we have any other public comment? Really quick, I forgot to introduce Doriandra. She is as much a part of the council as any of us. Doriandra actually is our program director. If you had ever been to a vaccine clinic, if you see the commercials on TV about the housing and all of that, Doriandra takes care of all of that for us. She's been with us since 2021. Is that right? And I've had the great pleasure of working with her, and we're really grateful and lucky to have her. Travis, did you have a question or comment for public comment?
Guess I did have a question for the Whiteaker Community Council. I'm just wondering if there's a standpoint that the council has taken on the various transient social services that are operating out of our parks, specifically the Underbridge Park adjacent to the skate park. Today I was reminded again with Black Thistle there doing their thing, which includes passing out needles as far as they've done in the past. I just think it's wholly inappropriate, and I'm wondering if the council has where we're at with trying to figure out a better place for these folks to distribute their harm reduction supplies away from children in the parks.
So, I can answer that and tell you that that's a very good question, and that this is exactly the place to bring it up. However, this is our first general meeting, and we only have had one business meeting, and we talked about business. So that's something that we haven't even had time to discuss or take a stand on, being a new board.
Fair enough. I
But
just
if we could put that in the notes and talk about it at a later date, that would be great.
thank you.
Yes. And how are we doing on time? Okay. Any other public comments? Great. So what we're gonna do
Margaret,
tonight.
it looks like we have Julie.
Oh, hi, Julie. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. I just wanted to say hello and introduce myself as the person who's coordinating activities at Scobert Gardens this summer, along with Sue Barnhart, another neighborhood member. So we are working on concerts in the park, also movie night with activities provided by Eugene Public Library, and also a Saturday games in the park, like yard games and ice cream social that I think the council is going to help us with. So we're looking for more information. You guys can look for more information about that. And I'm excited about it. I hope y'all are excited about it. We are looking for a couple more bands to play. If anybody knows of musicians who'd like to come play in the park, we've got a partial lineup, including Brian Cutian, the fantastic Chico Schwal, and Samba Ja. I think we have 2 nights that are not spoken for yet. So we're filling out our lineup. But just a little update on things that are going to happen at Scobert Gardens.
Fantastic. Thank you, Julie. We're really excited. I know you've been working with Thea on that,
And Thea as well, yes.
yeah, we hope it grows and grows and grows. Janet, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh,
Okay.
I was muted. Thanking them both, and I encourage them on each of their endeavors and getting those tracks cleaned up and addressing it promptly before it gets much worse. Thank you.
Thank you. So what we're gonna do right now is we're gonna have a little update from Doriandra. She's gonna take about 5 minutes and talk to us about the housing project.
Great, thanks, Margaret. Hi,
Thank
everybody.
you.
I want to share my screen if I can. Let's see. All right. Just want to give you guys a brief update on this project that is happening. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. So
It's still
this,
loading.
it's. Are you able to see it now, or?
No, it says that it's loading.
Okay. I think I had this problem last time. There's just too much on this Mac. Are you able to see just the basics screen like that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That may just keep it simpler. So we just wanted to let you all know about the Housing is Healthcare program, which is a program that was started with the Public Health and Safety Committee, which is part of the Whiteaker Community Council. And the main goal of this was to really move into a larger sphere of addressing the unhoused issues that we're having in our community, and also really work to mitigate some of the barriers that people have when they're looking into new housing. So we did a multi-layered approach with this program, and are really grateful to be in the lead up here, as we're almost in the end. We've got another month and a half, so we're really hoping to spread the word and see if we can be of service to other folks that we have not been able to be in touch with. The majority of all of our intake is coming from the 211 service, which when folks are in need, they're able to call the city 211 line and they're directly referred over to us. We also have a network of community-based organization partners that now have expanded from Arlene County into other parts of Oregon under the auspice of the OHA grantors. So some of our partners include Laurel Hill. We've got Center for Community for Positive Aging, which is up in Portland. And we're kind of widening the net in terms of community-based organization that share some of the same values of the Whiteaker Community Council. So we're really excited to be in that place. And as we move forward, and as our target here is closing in terms of time that we have left with the program, we're really trying to focus through a large advertising spot of increasing these two really critical elements. One is for folks that have created unsafe living conditions, which would cause eviction. So we're working with a professional now, so we'll be able to offer care and help in organizing and mitigating these circumstances. So that'll be a large part of this program as we move forward. Also, a really underserved part of the program, which nobody's really applied for yet, and I hope that we can be of service, is for folks that hit barriers when they have animals and they want to move the pets in. A lot of times the move-ins are so intense that folks can't meet those requirements. So today, when we're looking at, the goals of what we're hitting, the negotiations are so interesting because they really run a large gamut. And so we work through all of these problems of, can we work around existing court agreements? Are we able to match applicants if the need is higher than our grant allows? And also, how do we really work with tenants to keep them thinking ahead so that we don't have these issues that keep collapsing and finding folks in crisis. And one thing that's interesting to note here is as we've been moving through the cycle of the program, it's been sad to know that less than a fourth of the landlords we're talking to are even private homeowners. The majority are larger, huge corporations. So anyway, at the date today, as of May 1, we are absolutely honored to have kept 30 families in their houses. And as you can see, these are some of the main reasons. These were surgeries, major illness, COVID long haulers supported. And the real exciting thing here is that we've moved 6 families from unhoused into new rentals. So this is a real victory for people to feel a stability finally. And that's a lot of children represented, which feels really good to be of service. So yeah, that's pretty much the basis of our program. And we are really in the home stretch, as I said. If anybody knows of people in need that we could be supportive to, I'm going to put this in the chat. It's pretty basic, but if you go directly to our website, this will take you to a landing page, and from there you can find support for people through the intake form. And once I get that, I begin the process of income eligibility and working with the landlord, and we're able to provide help really quickly. So that's the program, and thanks for letting me chat about it.
Thank you, Doriandra, for all the work that you do. iPhone has their hand up. Is that you, Marcus?
Yeah, it's me, Mark.
Oh.
Margaret. Hi. So 2 questions. Is Doriandra able to take on all the current intakes, and are we actually on pace to meet the goal of all the money going out?
Yes, Marcus. I've moved.
What are you?
I'm sorry. Okay. I guess someone had their phone on. So Marcus, I think you asked 2 questions. One, yes, I have moved to full-time on this project, so I am able to process all of the intake. And then secondly, I think you asked, are we on track to utilize the funds?
Yeah, that was basically the question. We have until the end of June to spend the money, or we're having to talk to somebody else about why we didn't.
Yes, yeah, good point. So that's why I've kind of reached out and spread the network a little bit farther. So we're taking on and being in support of other community-based organizations that their funds ran out and they still have clients in need. So
Sure.
We're on track to finish the grant. And
so did we spend the money on advertising and we're still having to branch out to others?
It was part of a process that we agreed on with OHA with the advertising.
Right, but sorry, that was my question because it just seems like if we were going to reach out to others, we could have put all the money into others as opposed to spending money on advertising that doesn't actually put people in housing.
Sure. I think our main impetus was really to function more in Lane County. That's what our grant was specifically for. And so that is our onus to serve here first.
Okay.
So that was really why we wanted to push the advertising out and get more people aware of the program.
Okay.
Just to comment on that, I can tell you that I was contacted by 3 Whiteaker people right here in the neighborhood after they saw the commercial. Because they were unaware of the fact of what we were doing, because nobody ever said anything.
How much?
And so 3 people were able to reach out and get in contact with Doriandra, and she's working on getting them the help right here in the neighborhood. And that would have never happened without that advertising.
So that's truly great, but how much are they going to get versus how much did we spend on advertising? Was it a 3-to-1?
I don't have the numbers, but
no, but you get my point.
I do, but for me,
Okay.
you
Sure. No, that's
they're going to get a home.
Sure, but I mean, that's my point. Would you rather 3 people in Lynn County not get a home because we took care of Lynn County?
Well, I know we voted on it as a board, and sometimes we have to agree to disagree.
Sure, I felt like
that
money was meant for taking care of people, not taking care of.
And we voted on it as a board, and that's that
Okay. That's what it'll be.
Also one more thing to point out, since the radio spots on KRVM and which were given to us at a great discount, and the Eugene Weekly, and then the TV ads on KMTR, my intake has doubled for our Lane County residents. So the advertising has worked, and I'm getting an average now about 12 respondents a day, where before it was about 3. So the advertising has worked really, really well. And to just be more specific about outside folks, the only money that we're spending for other CBOs at this point has been less than $2,000 compared to the over, I think it's 102,000 we've put right back into our neighborhoods. So if that kind of helps show the quality and the amount that we're spending in our immediate area, I hope that helps.
And so we do have 2 people in the queue, and then we're running a little bit behind on our schedule. So we're going to move to the candidates as soon as Gail and Travis have an opportunity. So Gail, I think you're up.
Actually, Travis is first.
Oh, okay. Your name is in there first. So that's
I just saw that you had highlighted the fact that 25% of the participants were in the private sector or private homeowners. I'm wondering why you highlighted that, and further what that means to you.
Oh, sure. I guess I was really surprised that 75% of housing that's available for rental is not owned by private people. And that's kind of why I was struck by that fact that most of our checks that were going out to landlords to keep people in housing is not really for people. It's for it's for people, but it's for larger corporations that really have the bulk of the rentals here in Eugene.
Thank you. Yeah, I will point out that I've been in a situation personally with a nonprofit, big nonprofit, where they did a double deposit, and it didn't turn out well. We'll just say that it didn't turn out well for me. And there are a lot of reasons why the private sector doesn't want to sign on to. A lot of times what the people that are in these programs have needs that are well beyond living in someone's private residence without a lot of assistance. And so that's an issue that needs to be overcome before the private sector enters that market.
Yeah.
Okay, Gail.
Yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but I just want to point out that one of the things that moving into advertising has done for us is spread the knowledge of this program. And the reason that we wanted to be certain we spent all the money is so that we can get more money to continue to do this good work in our community. So the advertising that we're doing now is actually hopefully going to lead to us being able to do more support and more service with more grant money in the future. So it's kind of like seeding the waters, if you will, to use a fishing analogy, in order that the fish will be there when we have more money to give them, to keep them in their homes. So
Thank you, Gail. Okay, so at this point, what I want to do is I would like to introduce Janet Ayers, Barbie Walker, and Lindsay Leach. These are our three candidates that are running for community council. So here's what we're going to do is that each council person candidate will get 15 minutes to introduce themselves, talk about their platform. Saoirse's going to keep time. If you get to 10 minutes, then she's going to tell you have 5 minutes left. When it gets down to 2, she's going to let you know that you need to bring it to an end. At the end of that, then each person is going to have the opportunity to have one question. You put the question, Saoirse will put your name in the queue, you ask the question, and then each council person will have 2 minutes to answer that question. The quicker we can move through the questions, the more likely everyone is to be able to ask 1 or 2 or 3. So that being said, let's just start with Janet Ayers. Saoirse, are you ready? Do you have the 15 minutes? Okay, so let me introduce Janet Ayers. Janet, you're on mute.
Are you able to hear me? Are you able to hear me?
Yes, we are.
Okay. First of all, I had my hand up, but I did want to echo Travis's sentiment as a small housing provider. Exactly what he says would also be true in my case for what I just wanted to echo what Travis stated. I'm Janet Ayers. I'm a candidate for Ward 7 council seat. I was engaged in different agencies and trying to get our neighborhood, Whiteaker neighborhood, the issues that came upon us especially during COVID-19. It's been in a declining downward trend as far as the public safety and the risk issues. I've heard a word, reference to my neighborhood, Whiteaker neighborhood, is being affected by a term of urban rot. I wouldn't use the term rot, but we do have a wonderful, diverse neighborhood, and we have some very serious issues to address. I'd like to give you my response that was published in the Register Guard. I will support safe and healthy shelter for unhoused individuals who abide by reasonable rules that ensure the safety and peace of other citizens and businesses of our community. I will advocate for stronger measures to crack down on predatory criminal vagrants who victimize both our homeless and housed neighbors. I will seek to rescind the extreme upzoning of single-family neighborhoods, which will displace lower income renters, degrade neighborhood livability, and provide substantial profits for large private equity funds based outside of Eugene. Our local dollars leave the state. And I believe that's what keeps Oregon, if not Eugene, in a perpetual cash needy community. I will seek to rescind the extreme upzoning, or I said that. I will vote to fund adequate emergency and public safety facilities and staffing to ensure resident safety, especially in Ward 7, where the council's upzoning will create much higher density than current service levels are prepared to protect. I will pressure the mayor to demand that Lane County and state officials meet their statutory obligations to fund addiction and mental health treatment and shelter for the homeless instead of foisting off these responsibilities onto Eugene taxpayers. Seriously improving housing affordability, homelessness, and public safety requires money. We're not going to make a dent in these problems unless we quit giving enormous tax breaks to large out-of-state area developers and gifting millions of dollars in real estate profits to private equity investment funds by extreme upzoning of our neighborhoods and not requiring any affordable, truly affordable housing in return. That is my position. I like to clarify in some recent mailings by an opposing candidate in which it was stated that I am, and one postcard indicated that I'm MAGA, which I am not. I'd like to set the record straight. And another postcard from the same candidate indicated that I'm a liberal, which I am not. I am running for a nonpartisan position. And I believe the Democrat, Republican, whatever party you are, is not a part of this engagement. This is especially important that the candidate appreciate and understand that the politics that have proven to be very divisive of late, that most folks, I believe, within Ward 7 and talking with them are much more aligned than what some politicians would like to play off as not.
You're at 10 minutes, Janet.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to set the record straight per those targeted postcard mailings by a candidate here at the forum tonight. I am not advocating for dozens of homeless camps. I think there are better solutions out there. I think folks can appreciate that most people prefer not to live within a camp, but I am very supportive of public safety issues that are affecting our community at this time. In addition, as you may know or may not know, I recently filed through the Secretary of State a complaint on those mailings because of the identity of the funding agent for those postcards. I believe warranted a looking into by the Secretary of State, and I will trust that the Secretary of State will determine whether those were properly filed or not. So I wanted to be clear on that as well. Business strategies, you mentioned earlier that businesses are leaving the community. Local companies are struggling to attract and retain talent from graduating students to the executive level. The city is a partner in economic development. As such, this is a policy area where I need to get up to speed. As you can see from my life experiences, I have been a strong believer and participant in educational opportunities. I taught elementary, and I was from K through 12. I have been in all those levels of ages in classroom settings. I strongly believe in the power of education and knowledge and creating a workforce or folks with a can-do attitude and not one of struggling their entire lives in obtaining public assistance. I believe public assistance is should be tailored to help a person to get up and become much more productive in their lives. I'm a strong advocate in protecting the Greenway. It looks like the city is going in the opposite direction in allowing more and more encroachments to be permitted within our Greenway. Our city, Eugene, I remember years ago as my dad retired from the Air Force, we drove from South Carolina. My dad told us We were coming to the Emerald City known as Eugene, Oregon, and indeed it was. It was filled with trees. The greenway, the rivers, the geography of Oregon, if not Eugene, is absolutely a powerful attractant for other folks to want to live and reside in Eugene. I am deeply concerned about the city advancing and allowing the encroachment upon our greenway, and I will strongly advocate that the greenway is protected. The other thing I wish to address once in the council seat is the city not to be engaged in the real estate business. That is to say, to acquire properties and offer them to private equity real estate firms from out of state to develop and then move on out of the community. I want to see our local economy addressed and supported so that we have a vibrant community of folks that are able to afford to live here and pay the taxes that are necessary to keep the community safe and clean and an attractive place to live, and with safety being number one. I'd also like to see where the city addresses local business above out-of-state folks coming in and grabbing onto the sweetheart deals that are becoming all too often available.
You have 5 minutes left,
city.
Janet.
Okay, thank you. My top 3 priorities, I was reading that Eugene is probably one of the greatest in number in terms of the unhoused, and my recent search into the population of Eugene is approximately 177,000, and the unhoused number in anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 from the people that I have talked with. That is, I don't wish to defer the number, but it seems like a small enough population of unhoused with those that are housed and the community that we have here in Eugene. We have a huge propensity to help people in need, which is good. But in relation to the number that actually reside, 177,000, with the approximate number of 2,500 folks that have seemingly have got us in an impasse in how to address the housing issues for that percentage of the population that are residing here in Eugene. And my number 1 priority, I think it's inherently, I stated it, is getting the financial security for those that are living and working in Eugene with a true living wage jobs. So the power bill or a bill that creeps in 1 month isn't going to break the household and necessitate them becoming unhoused. I believe that 46% of Lane County citizens are struggling month to month. That's a huge populace, in my opinion, to have to struggle month to month with their paycheck. And if they get one unexpected bill, it can make or break whether or not they have housing. I think the city must get serious with that ratio and get serious in getting jobs and businesses up where they can provide certain financial security to those that are working and living literally month to month. And like I stated, I want safe and livable neighborhoods and parks. I don't want to go to my local park worried if I'm going to be harmed or witness to acts that are not usually permitted by most parents for their children to view. And I'm
You
speaking
have 2
of
minutes left, Janet.
the passing of the needles in the parks. I am with Travis on that. Black Thistle sets up a station. I spoke with one parks employee who said they pulled 3 55-gallon barrels of used needles in the Jefferson Park. It is no longer a park. It is a criminal hole in the wall opportunity for drug dealers. I'd like to see the city get serious about the broken down, dilapidated motorhomes that are allowed to park in and around and do drug dealing. I do not want that in the parks. The parks are supposed to be a point of good health and recreation, and not for those that are interested in profiteering with illegal substance, or now I guess they're legal substances that will affect the behavior and the lifestyle of those folks that buy into it. I will close with this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Janet. And next I will hear from Barbie Walker.
Mute.
There you go. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I'm trying to get back to the regular screen here. Hold on. Cancel. Bear with me. There we go. There we go. Okay, are we good?
We're good.
Okay. It was being weird here. I wanted to get back to a regular screen and it wants me to do a background. I don't want to do a background. Let's go like this. We'll go like that. I'll get there, folks. I don't know why I just said, there we go. All right. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I was able to go to one other of your Whiteaker meetings, and I found great value in that. I really like these one-on-one opportunities. I don't know if I can cover the 15 minutes because I don't read from a script kind of deal. I really enjoy in person, but this is great to have so many people here. My name is Barbie Walker. I am a candidate for Eugene City Council Ward 7, which encompasses River Road, Santa Clara, Bethel, Train Song, and Whiteaker. So where do we start? I think what people ask is, why are you running? Who are you? Where did you come from? All of a sudden, so to speak. And my answer to that is, I've lived in Eugene now for 25 years, just via Corvallis, just down the road kind of deal. And I've lived in many different wards, nearly all of them, these 25 years, which has afforded me a really good screenshot of Eugene and the different demographics and different times in my life where I've been put, or where I put myself, whether comfortable or uncomfortable, whether it was work or whether it was school or whether it was volunteering, which I'll get into that, has moved me along to really understand Ward 7, which is also very diverse, right? With all those different areas. And so it's a pleasure to be in this ward now, having that 25 years experience of all the other wards, and be able to communicate effectively with all walks of life, with all different people, with all wants and needs and dreams and hopes, and seeing how different parts of Eugene function, and being on their little different community organizations, or their volunteering there, and what can I bring here and then learn in return from the organizations that are here. Not to sidetrack too much, but I was at the River Road one last night, and we discussed their River Road Santa Clara neighborhood plan that they've been doing since 2017. Which is really interesting, and I've been watching it since 2017 from afar. I didn't live over here then, and so what I want to bring to the Whiteaker neighbor and Ward 7 as a counselor is some really good, common sense, clear, concise dialogue for people, for what the people want. I don't feel like, and I know actually, not feelings, I know that people aren't feeling heard on the council level. What we're getting is no constructive dialogue where then it's delivered to the councils and then it comes to fruition, right? And I believe I can be that person, that I come to these different meetings, I talk with people, I show up at the different events in person, non-scripted. I do it myself with a different life experience and volunteerism that I have, which is many avenues of volunteerism, and then deliver it to council in an objective, pragmatic, common sense way. I think there's some main concerns with Ward 7. Let's talk about safety, which will circle in then to the Whiteaker. This is the organization I'm in front of right now, right? Safety is huge right now in the Whiteaker, from what I'm hearing from the residents. When I walk around the Union Pacific Railroad, I think we are all privy to what was just going on with the sound, right? And we need to, in the best we can, make Union Pacific Railroad. And there's different people and avenues that we can connect with at the Portland level also, where is one of the managing hubs is for then us to get them to act a little bit more. I know that the city was imposing some fines and for the camping and the trash buildup that then we all know what kind of brings that. Now, with that said, I don't think that we are not cognizant of being empathetic and being graceful to people down on their luck. We're really cognizant about the difference between homeless, unhoused, urbanites, or whatever terminology people are
10 minutes, Barbie.
Wow, I guess I can go kind of classify themselves in. And so what we want to do though is we want to actually stop perpetuating and enabling these destructive behaviors. It's actually very inhumane. What we're doing is keeping some people in a destructive pattern that could be a family lifelong pattern of addiction or mental health. And what we need to do is empower people. We need to do that through avenues and already budgets that we have. We have lots of great avenues and budgets and housing already in place for mental health. I don't think we should recreate a wheel. And by empowering people and stopping a destructive behavior and keeping them in that cycle of addiction, we won't keep people in that space. So I'm really for empowering the unhoused. There's many cliche sayings. You can teach a person to fish, or you can give them a fish, things like that. We can bring it to hometown level like that if we like. I think that the sources we have, whether it's Buckley House or Whitebird or St. Vincent, or what I was with the Junior League of Eugene, which was huge and monumental in building the girls' youth house over St. Vincent with St. Vincent. I was on that VP board over down Willamette. It's not in this ward, but that girls' youth house wasn't institutionalized. Beautifully done rooms. All of them had different quilts and different themes. These girls wanted to go to school and they wanted to have an education and they wanted somewhere where they could sleep and grow and be productive adults, right? So we get them that housing. What comes next? Well, let's talk about another part of volunteerism that I was in and how we can help the unhoused, right? Direct impact, something that leads to something. We can all feel good about ideas, but let's do something that leads to something that's measurable for us, right? So then we did the ID program. The ID program is wonderful. We've got, and this is more of the youth is what I worked with, but it also happened at the legislative level with Representative Lively at the adult level also. So what I dealt with is there's these kids that they're going to school and they need to get their GED. Well, you need an actual ID to get your GED, right? And they don't necessarily have the parents or the tools or the money to do that. We made a program, Junior League and myself, with 4J School District, Julia Johnson, where we sat down with these kids, met them where they were, and filled out the DMV forms with them. If they were missing a birth certificate, we said, not a barrier. We know you have enough barriers. We'll get there. We'll find that birth certificate. We got them a birth certificate. You need a social security card. We will get you that. We happen to know a social security office here in town. Then once we gathered them together and we got all their forms ready with the school district, we all went down to the DMV together, rode the bus, We let the DMV know we were coming, of course. And then we sat there and I went counter to counter with each kid, paid for their IDs. We were swapping cards, debit cards, all this and whatnot, and got them their ID, right? And people say, well, that's great. That's something to chew on because now they got their ID, now they can go with their GED. But it's more than that. And this is where you get to know me a little bit. The smiles on their faces, that they had an identity, that somebody cared about them, that this community didn't let them down, was so valuable. That's where it started with me. So then when we went from that, is we took those kids and we said, you know what? Some of you got a place to live at the girls' shelter. We're still working on the boys. I understand what happened with that, and then COVID happened. And now you've got your ID. Let's take your GED. No, let's get you an occupation. So me, Junior League, and now the 15th night of Eugene, and at the time it was John Ruiz, the city manager, said, all right, let's do the work program. I said, well, I happen to own some restaurants and bars. And you know what? One of the first jobs for kids is hosting, bussing, dishes, stuff like that. Let's get them some jobs. So I said, bring them to me. Now I can only take a few at a time. I can open those doors, but they're gonna have to do it themselves as well. We had some failures and we had some successes. And that's what it's about. It's about doing things, having a problem or something that needs something, a need-based, right? Not necessarily a problem, I guess. Need-based. How do you figure out, what do you do it, make it come to something, and then measure it. So then when we had measurements of all this, we went ahead.
5 minutes now, Barbie.
All right, there's so much more to talk about greenways and EMX and the right to vote. But I wanted you to get to know me, basically. So then what we did is I met with Representative Lively and I said, all right, we've been funding this, Junior League and myself personally, we've been funding this. What do you say we put this at a bill? And he said, you know what? I don't see why not. I said, well, that was easy, right? And so he already had something going with adults. And I said, well, aren't we progressive? They were just starting it with adults. And it was for adults that were released from jail and they didn't have an ID anymore. So let's get them an ID. Otherwise, it just perpetuates crime, right? So I said, let's do kids. Let's put kids onto there. So it was adopted. It actually was adopted. And so now it's paid for. If you're going to pay for adults, pay for these kids. And who are the ones that get to decide what kids it is? It's going to be called the advocates, right? Teachers, school counselors, and basically school district. And then EPD can also decide who these kids are that get the funding. And then DMV also made an entire form for it just last year. This is going on for a while. And so that's one of the things that I want to present to you that I can do. I think it's important in keeping an accurate dialogue and understanding of who I am and what my campaign is. And I'm just trying to get to know you. And if you want to know about the Greenway, my stances on that and the right to vote, I want to get to know you all more. And we can get there. I didn't think I'd be able to go the 15 minutes, but I look forward to your questions. Thank you for your time.
It would help if I unmuted. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lindsay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be back. And like Barbie, I not used to having 15 minutes to talk about myself. I'm now used to having 3-minute chunks of time, but I'm excited to be able to share with you about myself and experiences and what I've been able to accomplish so far on council. So I was appointed in December to fill the vacant seat leading up to this election. And I've been, working my tail off to really focus on the quality of life for our citizens in Ward 7. And I'll get to more of that. I want to talk a little bit more about my background first, which, brought me up to that point where I could get appointed. And that is really, about 13 years of nonprofit work in this community. I got my master's degree in nonprofit management and organizational sustainability. So my focus is really on coming into an agency or an organization and really looking at its systems and improving its structure so that the revenue generation can be sustainable through time. So I've been able to do that for, several different organizations, up to the child center, where I was managing all of the contracts and revenue generating activities for a $12 million organization in behavioral health for children and families. And that really meant working really closely with the county, with the state, with Oregon Health Authority, all of the insurance providers like Trillium and Pacific Source, on contracts ranging from Children's Mobile Crisis Response Program that runs throughout Lane County, and the Children and Adolescent network that transitions kids who are in crisis out of the emergency department and into appropriate behavioral health care. So just that experience of really managing a large organization and all of the pieces that go along with working with stakeholders and boards of directors and being beholden to restrictions on that funding. It's really important to really have that foundational knowledge of what does a budget look like when you have restrictions? How do you leverage different types of funding so that you can not just, have money now, but you can have programs that can be sustained through time. And so now I'm the executive director of Well Mama, which is much smaller than a $12 million organization. But now I work directly with families every single day who are struggling, navigating the transition into parenthood. And that, has really the need has really increased over the years, especially since COVID, as people became parents in an era of extreme isolation. And we've seen so much more abuse, so much more domestic violence, family separation, and just a lot of need, housing instability, and really focusing on, helping those people navigate through systems that are really difficult to navigate within. And so, I come with the framework of really being very, very well tied into the community and what people are going through. And so that's, leads to my passion in behavioral health care, and what kind of prompted me to want to be on the council is that I see this, play between the city and the county and this tension there, and, whose responsibility is it for the lives of our citizens, and it's all of our responsibility, and we should be working together, and we should be meeting at the table and really working to find common goals and get to a place where we can achieve those. Even if we don't believe on the method of getting there, we can all find common ground somewhere. And so since being appointed, I've really had that focus of meeting people where they are and helping to improve their life. And so one of the very first things that came up when I became counselor is this noise ordinance for the Zippo log mills. And it was that low frequency noise. It was a lot of people had been affected by it for years. And so I crafted an emergency measure to eliminate the 30-day waiting period, so that people could get some relief as soon as possible. It felt like as soon as that was actually taken care of and they moved that planner indoors, after putting a lot of pressure on them, after lots of communication with the community and with staff and with the company and fighting legal battles, they finally moved their planner. And then it felt like, oh, wow, here's another siren noise coming from Union Pacific. And so utilizing the network that we had established with communication via social media and emailing, I was able to really broadcast a lot of information out that we got from Val Hoyle in terms of complaints. And that was taken care of much more quickly, thanks to this community-led grassroots effort. And
You're
so
at 10 minutes here, Lindsay.
Thank you. So Union Pacific was able to decommission their engine, and thank goodness, because I could hear it and it was awful. It sounded like a tornado siren. And so there's been a lot of moments where the community said, this is wrong and we need help. And I did everything I possibly could, which is, a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, to try to not only hear what they're saying, but do something about it. In terms of, the unhoused, yes, it's a big problem. We need to address it. And one of those things is a housing shortage, and specifically affordable housing shortage. I've said prior that I would always be voting for more housing, but within that, we are developing the neighborhood plan, and I've been a strong advocate in working with the community organizations involved in the River Road Santa Clara neighborhood plan, as well as the Willamette Greenway code amendments, and really strengthening the regulation around how do we process these applications and what metrics and clear and objective standards are we going to have, so that when people do develop in these areas, these are the criteria that they have to meet, and those need to be acceptable. And so we've spent hours and hours and hours, meeting with the community, and I think we've come to a fairly good place with those code amendments. We have clear and objective standards for greenway development, in a pathway where people will have to, there's increased setbacks from the river. There's native planting requirements, there's public access requirements. A lot of the things that the community said is a priority have been able to be included in that. And everything will always come with a big public process. So within that framework, now we can add housing and feel good about where that is. There have been a few different affordable housing unit dwelling units projects that have come up on council. One of them is the Coleman that's coming up as a transitional housing from sponsors. And one of them was we gave the naval base to Homes for Good to build a huge affordable housing complex, and that will have childcare and so there is motion in that regard, but it's not enough. And so recently we looked at the state requirements for the camping code. And it's my opinion that, we already have people camping here and they keep getting arrested and moved around and their property taken. And where can they be? Where can we find legal places for them to be that are acceptable? And can we guide them to that instead of continuing to set them up for failure? I talked to one gentleman at length who has been arrested 68 times. He said the majority of those times it was because his tarp was just over a line or a piece of personal property was out. That means 68 times that he's been fined about $250. Where are we setting this person up for success instead of constant failure? How can we move the needle so that enforcement is going to help? So we're going to keep working towards it. We're going to keep getting better, dialing it in, and keep getting more affordable housing. And I think I want to use my experience in behavioral health for over 13 years to help add qualified mental health professionals. Right now we have a shortage. There's just not enough mental health professionals to meet the need. So I've been, working with Lean Workforce Partnerships, the Economic Development Organizations, Lane County Health Council, the county, just a lot of different entities that are working towards different ways to incentivize or change how we can qualify mental health professionals so that we can get more of them that are here in our community, more people that are here in our community qualified to serve those in need. The model that I use at Well Mama is peer support specialists. And I think I'm excited to learn that Lane Community College is offering
You're at 5 minutes, Lindsay.
We'll be offering a peer support specialist certification, and that's one step up. That's a pathway to a good job from someone who has lived experience with either addiction or mental health or home, being unhoused. And so there's there's a missing component in between that and being a qualified mental health professional. And so I'm working with all those entities to try and fill that gap, that middle missing piece. So there's a lot of things that are coming up. You know, I'm a landlord. I have one small property that has 2 units on it. But I see the need for renter protections, reasonable renter protections, because of the market that we're in. We have a very limited supply of rentals. We have a very high population in our community relatively of renters. And there's, you know, things that have been looked at to say, well, if we can prevent evictions, we can keep someone from becoming homeless. And so, you know, so looking at those, I'm supportive of the majority of the renter protections that we are going to be voting on soon. And just, you know, there's so many of those little pieces that we can just start to move the needle. But the most important thing is really just being at that table, being able to be civil and work with people who have a vast different array of opinions on any number of things. You think you have one person figured out, well, they have a lived experience that lets them believe this other thing. And so it's really coming together and finding that common ground. So thank you again for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. So I know that Travis has a question, so we're going to start with him. Please raise your hand, put your name in the chat. Saoirse, send your name to Saoirse, and we'll get the questions going. So what's going to happen is that please ask one question, and then each candidate will have only 2 minutes to answer, and then we're going to move on to the next, so we can get as many questions in as we can. Travis, you want to go first?
Sure. So the Whiteaker neighborhood's a fairly transient neighborhood in terms of people moving in for school and staying for a few years and leaving. We've got a lot of rentals. That being said, we also have a lot of lifetime residents, anywhere from 20 to 60 to 70 years that have lived in the Whiteaker and Ward 7 in general. Quite a large elder population. Forever residents and newcomers alike have expressed their frustration. Many are outraged on the lack of city support in initiating effective policies to address the chronic drug addiction and criminal element throughout our parks and streets. City council, past and present, and including our past councilor Claire Surratt, almost never publicly advocated or took action to change our area's historically marginalized paradigm. What will you do to defend our neighborhood from the current degradation? And I call it urban rot. That's what it is. I've been there my entire life. We're losing longtime people. People are moving out of the neighborhood. We're losing businesses. We're going to lose more businesses. What are you going to do to defend our neighborhood from that urban rot? We are experiencing, due to the enabling city policy that continues to disproportionately marginalize our neighborhood and lower our quality of life compared to most other neighborhoods in Eugene. That's my question.
Great. Janet, you want to go first? Are you ready, Saoirse?
I am. And Janet, I'm asking you to unmute right now.
I have.
It's really important we keep it to 2 minutes.
Well, I'm attempting to do that. I will agree with Travis. The decline of the Whiteaker neighborhood has been significant. And I think that the city has put forward very poor policy in addressing what is clearly an ongoing decline. One of which I believe is a way to address it is providing living wage jobs for folks that when they do get into housing, how are they able to sustain that when it's a month or less than a month of ability to pay the rent and all the other bills that come with it. a big piece of it is the city governance and not enforcing current rules on the books for relatively speaking, with a population of about 2,500
1 minute
folks.
left, Janet.
I know that. 2,500 folks, and there are much better, I know, effective ways to deal with this rather than letting it go into decline and having the community is fatigued by it. We pay an inordinate amount of taxes with little or no services to address it. And the city has to get down to brass tacks and start with a much more effective, proactive policy making and addressing it. And what has occurred to date has done nothing but create more of a decline in the quality of our neighborhood of Whiteaker Ward 7.
Thank you very much. Okay, Bobby?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So what we have here is we have ourselves a social economic situation and a lack of vacancies. And so if we want to be directly effective to not continuing to enable a destructive behavior that's not only destructive to the area of Whiteaker and Eugene as a whole, but the people that are causing the destruction. I mean, it is a self-destructive behavior, correct? And so what I would first do is what I have been doing somewhat before you knew me is I know Chief Skinner. I know him pretty well with all the different volunteering I've done, and not just Junior League, a lot of volunteering. And I do like that we have a strong chief, that he will speak his mind and articulate himself very well. He is goal-oriented, measurable goal-oriented, plan-oriented, as am I. And so what we need to do is also allow our first responders, whether it's the firefighters, whether it's EPD, to do their job effectively and help them to help these people to understand that the laws that we live by,
1
they
minute
also
left.
live by, right? And we need to start enforcing these laws. There's been some different camping laws that have come about, and I've seen Skinner and I've seen his reaction to it, that aren't really helping to understand. So now it's 100 feet from here, but 50 feet from there. But then how are you going to carry measuring tapes around? It needs to be solid laws. We need to speak about it and say, we are not going to enable destructive behaviors for these people. We're not going to help them enable themselves. And we're going to move forward with being verbal about it and vocal about it. And it will only turn around and help them. It's the old saying, help me, help you. I want to. With empathy, we need to move forward with being firm but fair, empathetic, and equitable. You know, what people keep saying equitable, because one help for one person isn't going to match another help for another person. But we have to start having these tough conversations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbie.
Okay.
Lindsay?
Yeah, on this topic, I think we voted as a state to decriminalize drugs, but we were also promised that that would be paired with increased addiction services, and it was not. We do not have that increase of addiction services. And so what we're left with is more of an addiction problem and nowhere to send people when they need the help. And we have a huge issue with drug dealers preying upon our unhoused who are in a very vulnerable situation. People who are preying upon people who, are living at the mission, who are trying their best to get clean or to be clean, and they're right there in those vulnerable moments. And so, I really think we should be focusing our enforcement efforts on those people who are dealing and spreading that addiction into our community. And I'm very much looking forward to the behavioral health stabilization center being opened hopefully next year, because I think that will be that middle step where we can bring someone to that stabilization center and get them the help that they need. In the interim, we need to be really just hyper focused on that problem and trying to get people into adequate housing and into safe places.
Thank
That's
you,
all I have.
Lindsay. Stephen, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you. Welcome to the candidates. My question is, many people who live here are low income and cannot afford their own transportation. Also, many people who own their own transportation would like to use public transportation more to lower their greenhouse gas impacts. What is your plan for working with the county, for the city to work with the county, so everyone has access to timely bus service in the city?
Great question. How about we start with you this time, Lindsay?
Thank you. I think we have a lot of transit plans in motion. A lot of studies being done to look at all of this, the traffic patterns and where we need additional bus lines. We have some different leadership coming in from LTD, and they are going to be putting out a lot more information in the coming months about what those plans look like. And I think as a community, we all said we want more safety and we want more bikeability, walkability, we want more transit. But also the community is nervous about what that means for their neighborhoods and what that means for their roads, and carving property out, and so that's a really big topic on River Road. And so we need to be able to speak together and come together as a community and state our goals and get there. So yes, we have the ability to gain a lot more federal funding if we go with the higher level improvements, and that can go towards our climate action goals and our ability to have a community that's more able to transport themselves around without cars. And that's going to be more important moving forward, because the state has said that we are eliminating parking minimums. There will be
30
more people in
seconds.
the community that don't have that transportation. So yeah, more communication, more engagement is going to be necessary to the community and from the community.
Thank you very much. Barbie?
All right. So transportation. Eugene needs a well-designed. We talked about this actually last night at the meeting at the River Road Santa Clara meeting. So it needs a well-designed mass transit system. We need properly sized buses. We need point-to-point service. We need excellent roads. We need plentiful parking and charging stations. We'll get into things that have changed with parking. Well-maintained sidewalks. We need walking trails, bike paths, maps. All sources of transportation need to be available to everyone. We can't marginalize any person. And what somebody doesn't need is to get on a bus, then have to take a transfer to the station here and a transfer to station there. And when I was talking to Councilor Evans a long time ago, I said, listen, people can't afford to take LTD. He said, what do you mean by that? I said, well, you're talking about working families or people with disabilities or whatever it can be, or even students, right? The buses aren't even picking students up to go to school on time, or they're at school too ahead of time. And we have these huge buses. And so what we need is a well-designed plan. And we need it to be transparent. And so I do believe I'd love to talk to Jameson Otten one-on-one, but I've seen him in different forums that I've gone to and different speaking engagements. And I think he's a great thinker. And I think he's trying to be transparent. And I have talked to Tiffany Telfer Edwards and Pat and all of them about where is this design going? And is it going to be practical for the people that are using it, and to be cognizant of going green and environmentalist and the cost of it. How is this cost going? Where are we getting it funded? Lots of moving parts when we talk about transportation. With that said, I'm all for Arcimoto. I'm invested in Arcimoto. I know one of the founding people of Arcimoto, Jesse Fittipaldi. I've known him since college, and I believe in different modes of transportation. We can talk about the scooters now; it's a different thing. But let's get a well-designed plan. Let's be transparent about it. And let's actually be green about it, and let's be cognizant of our neighbors and be good hosts to the people that live upon River Road that already had some of their land taken away when we expanded River Road, if people remember that. All right.
Thank you, Barbie. Janet?
Yeah, in my discussions at the several city or the neighborhood associations, listening to people. The ridership simply isn't there to be running these huge buses up and down River Road with maybe 3 to 5 people riding those big buses. The LTD needs to do a much better study of where we are currently. We are not a metropolitan city yet, and I think they've got plans and design as though we are. We're not there yet. Many folks have talked to me about the need for smaller buses so that they can go in and out of maybe smaller roads to be more widely serviced, kind of an intermediary in between the ride source and what LTD currently offers in those big buses. We don't need on many of the routes those huge buses running with 4 to 5 passengers in it. Is just, to me, just appalling, a waste. They also need to map it out. I know in driving transportation for 4J
1 minute left.
4J school district, they have software apps or folks that are transit planners that have a very in-depth an accurate way of addressing what the city needs are. With LTD going to a Portland organization, CH2M Hill, and putting out that 400-page report that really didn't meet the needs of the citizens that were affected by closing down River Road from a 4-lane to a 2-lane. I think a much better, with more qualified transit planners that are in the know and can study the current situation, the transportation needs here in Eugene, and while keeping an eye to what projections there are for the future. But first and foremost, they either need to get the ridership up, or more likely they need to start with smaller buses. We don't need great big buses going up and down River Road, spewing out diesel.
Time's
I know
up.
there are a few.
Thank you very much, Janet. Julie.
What I would like the candidate to speak to is sanitation issue in the Whiteaker. Specifically, while we are working toward these admirable goals of a living wage and affordable housing and equitable places and identifiable safe places for people to camp, in the meantime, what are you going to do to get the city to address the very real and very significant health issues posed by trash, by rotting food, and by literal biohazard, by literal human waste that is being left on our sidewalks, on our property, and on our parking strips by people who have no other places perhaps to put them, or don't know where to put them, or don't care about where they're leaving these things. It's a substantial issue, and there's a very real disease hazard. So what can you do to help the city address this more appropriately?
Thank you, Julie. Barbie.
Okay, very good question. So my response to that is, what did the city do when they cleaned up under Washington Jefferson Street Bridge every 2-3 years, right? Can we not do the same thing? Where was the budget for that? Where's our budget going? Not only is it proper to bring in enforcement so people don't do this and don't continue to do this at some level, and I let Chief Skinner do his job, let them, the experts do what the experts do, right? And keep in contact with him. But what did they do? What did they do there? What did they do to clean up right before the Worlds is what I would bring to council, because all of a sudden Eugene looked really nice right before the Worlds, right? So what are we not doing now? Why is it all falling back again? You know, the city was fining the Union Pacific, what, $1,100 a day for not cleaning up the railroads in Union Pacific at some point, right? With the unhoused and what was going on there. Should we as a community organization join together and maybe say, hey, us neighbors are coming together and maybe we'll fine you, the city, for leaving trash in your streets, trash here and there. This is supposed to be
1
something that
minute.
you're supplying as a city. So it's really coming to council with common sense dialogue and putting all the cards on the table and saying this is a problem, and not beating around the bush and being direct with what's going on, and then also sorting or citing where they have done cleanup and why is it not happening here as well. That's why I say that.
Thank you very much. Oh, I'm getting lost. Janet?
Yes, the sanitation issue is a big one. And rather than being reactionary and having folks come in and after the cleanup, there has to be a better way to incentivize, or if not enforce, current laws on the books to make it clear to folks that have disassociated themselves from society that defecating and urinating publicly. Most cities, towns have laws on the books, and I know Chief Skinner, and I know EPD officers have told me they can only do what city manager and the mayor tell them they can do. They are not at liberty to enforce the laws, as my understanding and talking to the many EPD officers, that they are guided into what enforcement actions they're able to act upon, and to a lesser attention on those that they probably shouldn't. I say if they are it is a clear sanitation issue, and I'd like to see the campers disallowed from camping in or near the river or on those islands where the cleanups have taken place at great hazard to those river keepers, the folks that try to keep the waterways clean and clear. I, for one,
30 seconds.
I do not want to see campers down using the Willamette River or waterways as their personal septic tank or septic system. I think enforcement action needs to be very clear and very acted upon.
Thank you very much, Janet. Lindsay?
Yeah, I mean, if you are unhoused, there's going to be a garbage situation if there's not enough city services to handle it. You know, if I didn't have garbage collection to my house, it would pile up. But I have a vehicle, so I could take it to the dump, but these people do not have that. So we need more city managed garbage services. I have asked the mayor, I've asked the city manager, I've asked our sanitation teams, what can we do? Can we put more dumpsters? Can we put more garbage collection and manage that ourselves? And I'm getting very limited response. And so I want to continue to push that. And we need more public restrooms. We have very, very limited amount of public restrooms and that are open at all hours. And so are we really asking people to hold it all night? You know, it's just a tricky situation. So we need to be adding that. We need to make that a priority, and then enforce people to be able to use those
1
things.
minute.
So if they can't do much without there being something to put it in, and so we need to give them more opportunities to do that and then enforce it.
Thank you very much. Doriandra?
I think Chris was first.
Oh, I lost track. Thank you. Chris, sorry about that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, candidates. There's often a problem with illegal camping on my street, which is difficult when I have a 3-year-old and an 8-month-old, and often have to escort my 3-year-old around Needles. And when I report that to the online dashboard on the city's website, it kind of feels like, you know, dropping a penny into a wishing well. And so if the problem remains, I'll call the non-emergency line just to inquire. And I'm told that it's, quote, not a priority of the current city council. And so I wonder to the candidates, what specific laws or proposals will you put in place to address illegal camping?
Janet?
I said I would be glad to answer that. The Supreme Court, as I understand it, made a ruling that in cities or jurisdictions where societies exist, that they must provide places for folks to rest and use a bathroom and dispose of garbages. That's why we have these safe camps that with varying levels, they have different restrictions depending on the camp. And as you get lower to the bottom of the tier, there are camps that are not really considered a nonprofit, but they kind of go off to themselves and self-manage. So to address that, it seemingly with the Supreme Court ruling mandating communities, cities, towns to provide these places. Otherwise, they have the right to camp wherever they deem fit. And if a city, as Eugene has provided, I understand they're under-serviced, they're not being used. If they're out on the sidewalks and they have availability in these safe spots and they're electing to spread themselves across the sidewalk, they should be directed to those safe camps where they're able to use the resources that are available within each of those camps up to the lower tier of those where they're pretty much on their own, do I say? I don't think that it's up to citizens in a community to have to tolerate the biohazards of folks that have disassociated themselves, whether it's through mental illness, through drug use, through an apathetic mentality. I don't think the mainstream of most folks living in a society should be forced or expected to tolerate that.
Thank you very much, Janet. Barbie?
All right, so there's a lot of moving parts here. First of all, public camping, unfortunately, to some degree, it's a violation. It's not a crime, right? And so there was a court case where it was Martin versus Boise, where his Fourth Amendment, he sued Boise because his Fourth Amendment right was being violated. And what that was is it was cruel and unusual punishment because he was over-ticketed, right? And so that created a response bill. What that response bill was House Bill 3115. So what I would do on the council level is some of these bills and some of these documents are what we call living documents, right? And so they're in for interpretation, just like a judge interprets a law or what's before him. So the language of the 3115 that we have as a city, we need to make clear how we want to interpret that, because the way that we live by laws as citizens that contribute, that want to work, play, live, retire here, raise our families, other people need to live by those laws too. So when we're talking about needles or unhoused or illegal camping, we need to look at that 3115 House bill and we need to interpret it how we need to interpret it so everybody lives by the same law. And then with the cleanup, once again, how does the city clean up anything? The city cleans up parts of the city. Maybe we should, like I said, like they fined Union Pacific, I think it was $1,100 a day or something. Can we come together and find the city for not cleaning up the city streets? And it shouldn't be on us citizens. Shouldn't be on us citizens to go around picking up needles that are given out at Washington Jefferson Street Bridge amongst kids. And I don't see any really kids skateboarding there anymore or playing any horseshoes. And so that's what I would do. I would look at that language. Ooh, I got to talk fast with these 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. Lindsay.
Yeah, I mean, 3115, the council is working on drafting that ordinance, and I think it's everyone can come together on certain pieces, that we don't want people camping in the park. We don't want people camping where ADA accessibility is an issue. We don't want people in motor vehicle areas where they could get hit by a car. So we've come together and developed this long list of prohibitions on where and we would not want them to camp. And that's going to be coming to a public hearing. So you all have an opportunity to voice your opinion on that. But then the other side of that is how is that enforced, and then what is left over? Where are people going to be able to camp beyond that ordinance? And are people just going to be left to figure that out on their own? And yeah, I mean, absolutely. We just spoke garbage, needles, all of these things are a problem. We should be doing more about it. And then also reminding that whoever wins this election, you're one person on a council of 8. And so we can't ourselves do anything. We can help, we can bring up topics, we can push forward, a work session. And then it's up to a group of 8 to make these decisions and work together on that.
Thank you very much. Briandra.
Thanks, Margaret. So my question is just basically about our unhoused folks struggling with housing in the community. The main reason most of us don't have housing here, many of the people, is that they just simply can't afford what's here. And everybody's basically one step away from crisis, whether it's illness or car wrecks or whatnot. So what is your plan to make sure everybody has a home with a door that they can lock at night to be safe?
Good question. Janet?
My plan, as I stated earlier, is financial security, ensuring that there are living wage jobs. First and foremost, you have to have the capacity to be in a housed environment and the ability to have the other facets of your life, the bill paying capacity. Also, the city is pretty deficient, I think, in not making certain that the projects that they have provide to these out of state developers, these private equity real estate folks that come in and grab all the goodies from the city tables and then leave. I think we need to make it a priority that it's a local problem with local solutions and with local businesses providing, getting those contracts to develop and to together work it together as a community of Eugene. It should not be going to out of state, out of town folks. We have plenty of businesses here that are local, have been here for many years, that know of the problems and would be the best to address the housing, ensuring that they're the lower rung of housing affordability, while also providing jobs that are true living wage jobs, not just month to month, but where one is able to have a sense of well-being by being able to go to work and knowing that they're able to pay for the bills and have a roof over their head. And I'm all for less apartments coming in. I don't see a whole lot
That's 2 minutes.
Individual houses being allowed to be built unless you're upper end.
Thank you very much, Janet. Barbie?
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, is how do you keep a roof over everybody's head, regardless of social status, right? Or social economic status, or what's going on in their life, mental health, whatever. How do you do it for everyone? Nearly impossible. But all I can say is there's huge barriers for the builders and the people that are producing houses. We should shut down some of the high SDCs. And what that is when you do a change of use of something. So the builders and people that want to move in can't move in. We could start with, enforcing Senate Bill 608, which is basically enforcing protection for renters. I like to call it renter retention because I think that landlords and renters want to work cohesive. I don't believe that a landlord doesn't want to have a renter. That's what they're in the business for. But there has to be on both sides equitable and a relationship there, so it's fair to both. How do you keep a roof over everyone's head? I know that the Councilor Groves at one point said if we can change some of the zoning.
1 minute
some of
left.
thank you, on some of the businesses that now can be turned into homes. I've seen it in other cities where if it was an old school or it was an old business, all of a sudden now they have the city has enabled that to be a house. I've seen co-ops, different places. We need to change some of the zoning. We need to change some of the barriers for builders. And there's different things we need to enforce. Senate Bill 608, that's not enforced. So renters do have some rights along with landlords, and it's cohesive. Lots of moving parts, ADUs, changing commercial to residential, but keeping a house over everyone's head, that is a big mountain to climb. And I'm willing to sit there and talk with more builders, more realtors, more landlords, more renters, and let's come to a meeting of minds and do some measurable movements for people, because people do have the right to shelter. They absolutely have the right to
2
shelter.
minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbie. Lindsay?
To be able to put everybody in a home, you have to have enough homes to put everybody in, and we're facing a shortage right now. And the affordability piece, when you have more supply than you need, prices will start to drop. Right now, prices are going through the roof because there's not enough. So yes, making it a little easier to build, looking at middle housing, adding in, more units, looking at creative ways. We just voted to invest $50 million into mostly housing and affordable housing in the downtown area. And part of that was to really reanalyze some of these empty buildings that are downtown. The Sykes building is just sitting empty for a long time. Can we take that and make that into housing? And other just innovative kind of ways to look at moving, more bodies into shelter and improving our downtown, and increasing revenue and adding to the
1 minute
supply.
left.
So there is sufficient homes and shelter for everyone.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Brad, I believe you're up next, and then after that we're gonna do is it Genevieve? Genevieve, and Travis after that, because Travis, you did get to ask one question already. Is there anyone that has not asked a question that would like to be up? Because we're running out of time here.
Only if
Okay,
we have
will you put
only if we
Thea
have
in the
time.
queue, please? And then Brad, are you ready?
I am ready.
Fantastic.
So, first I just want to thank all three candidates for showing up. This has been very informative for me. I really appreciate you being here. I have one transportation question, but I have to give a little background first. So bear with me for like 45 seconds. Over the last decade, Eugene has seen the number of people riding bikes to get to do their business drop to less than half of what it previously was. Not rather related to that, the city council passed a Vision Zero, which I at the time called Zero Vision. As soon as that was implemented over the next 2 years, we saw a doubling of the deaths of people who were not in cars on our streets. A doubling. That's a non-trivial change. And in our neighborhood, I look out and I see that I've seen the traffic surveys, Railroad Boulevard, West First Avenue. The majority of the cars are going 15 miles an hour over the posted speed limit. And the posted speed limit itself is 10 miles an hour over the statutory speed limit. Not surprisingly, no one's gonna ride a bike there, and it's taking your life in your hands to cross it. Over 75% of the cars are driving in the bike lanes there. So my specific ask is to reverse this negative trend that accounts for the majority of climate change. Would you support an ordinance to steel bollard protect all of the bikeways in Eugene. This is a new thing that the NACTO is now pushing because they've realized that when you don't protect your bike lanes to prevent motorists from driving in them, they drive in them. And even if they don't hit people, they scare people away from using them. So that's my one ask. Will you support that? Thank you.
Great, Janet.
I'm sorry, could you restate what the proposal was for the barrier to keep bicyclists safe? And
He wants to know if you'll support protecting all of the bike lanes in town.
And
correct, Brad?
Yes, protecting them with a steel bollard, which is a steel post, vertical post. They range from 2.5 to 3.5 feet tall, as opposed to what our traffic planners like to use, which are called mountable curbs. When they ever do any protection, it's a mountable curb that people just drive right over when they want to. And I've watched them do that.
Right. Well, Brad, I do agree with you. People are driving far too fast and have little regard for pedestrian and bike. I've noticed that while driving by, inch a pedestrian out of the crosswalk, literally. I think that the River Road in particular needs enforcement pretty much 24/7, I would say. I have seen cars doing 55, 60 miles an hour, and although it's a 4-lane, it is not a speed track. I wouldn't even be opposed to seeing that drop down to 25 miles per hour. People are driving far too fast. Yes, I would support, in addition to lowering the speed on those roads, a method to protect bicyclists on corridors that are fraught with traffic and with a high volume of speedsters, for lack of a better word. I think our bicyclists need to have that safety, as do the pedestrians. I've seen a clear deference of people in cars not respecting the value of human life. And I would support it, but I would also encourage the lowering the speed limit with active enforcement of that, so that cars know that if they don't slow it down, they will be ticketed. I agree with your proposal, Brad.
So, hey, Barbie, we're running out of time, and there's a couple people in the that in mind when you answer the question. I would really appreciate that, because we'd like to get as many questions as we can in.
Okay, you froze when you said that. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said we have a couple of people left, and we cannot, according to our charter, run over past 9 o'clock. So would you support building that and having it on all the bike lanes in town?
Well, I get my 2 minutes, but I do appreciate supporting bike lanes. Well, there are transportation laws and infrastructure laws that need to be followed. With that said, I was around when the U of O students did the bike lanes from downtown to campus, and it was well intended, but I do understand what you're saying about the mountable curbs. They're already chipping away, and how many years have we been into it, right? There really is no protection there. With that said, also, you've got a set of bike lanes going right next to each other, different directions. I think that's not safe either. You get one bike passing each other and you're going head on, and you've got these little mounted curbs that are just being chipped away. So depending on the design, depending on the funding, and following all state laws and transportation laws, and getting the experts in the circle at the boardroom table too, sure, let's protect our bicyclists. And at the last meeting, I just had the neighborhood plan for River Road. That was one of the topics that they had, was on River Road, and then especially the bottleneck by Beltline and Silver Lane and the transportation over there. And I do understand also that we need some standardization, so people understand the different bike lights. At one place you have a light that looks like a bicycle, and another place you have it where it's just a red and green light. You have green bike lanes, it's all just not standardized, and it's very confusing to motorists and bicyclists alike. So there, did I do it? Okay.
Thank you very much. And Lindsay.
Yes, I support designated protected bike lanes. I love riding my bike, especially in river. I won't I won't ride my bike on River Road. It feels very dangerous. There's other places in the city I feel the same way. If we want to incentivize and make it easier for people to ride their bicycles, then yeah, we should protect in those bike lanes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Genevieve?
I just wanted to ask how the prospective council members, with the levy that is currently on the ballot in support of parks and maintenance, will advocate for those funds to be used within Ward 7. And do they have any specific ideas, such as supporting Scobert Park or reopening Washington Jefferson, those kind of things?
Great. Janet?
I enjoy the parks. I'd like to see the city get more active in governing the safety of those parks and the sanitation of those parks. I've already stated that I would support a bike path being protected, whether the curbs get chipped or not. The being able to defer keeping a car from killing a bicyclist. And they are on the uptick. It's because cars are driving way too fast. And I don't think the enforcement is there. But to answer your question, yeah, I would like to see the city focus more on policy, proactive policy that keeps our parks safe and clean.
Thank you very much. Barbie?
This is where the biology major, chemistry minor, and the ecology evolution person comes into play. And the greenways and the parks, and specifically, like you asked, the Washington Jefferson Street Bridge, I've actually had a plan that I've wanted to do there. And I do believe we used to have like a downtown Eugene celebration. Wouldn't it be so cool to beautify and bring in a downtown celebration of sorts underneath the Washington Jefferson Street Bridge once that area is decontaminated, for better words. And then what I've found is when you beautify something and you bring beauty into it, and you bring life and spirit, it does start to kind of push out the bad. And so let's bring that in. And that would be something I would do with one of the parks. If you want to talk ecology evolution or biological niches, biodiversity, I'm your gal. I really am. The ecology evolution in me, and I also did the genetics lab too. But we can talk more in person. I'd love to talk more in person about that.
Thank you very much. And I'm Lindsay.
Yes, please do vote for the parks levy. It is a tool that we can use to keep our parks clean, safe, and enjoyable for all of us to use. And I will and have continued to advocate for Ward 7 everything. You know, that I'm the representative on that table, and I will always say, you know, what about Ward 7? I think in a lot of our spaces are really neglected and need a lot of attention more than other parts of the city. And so I'll always be that voice at the table saying, hey, what about us? Let's focus here. And the good news is Washington Jefferson Park is supposed to be opening soon. They were just waiting for the grass to fully grow in and the rain to stop making it all sloppy. So that should be coming up any time now. And I look forward to it being a beautiful park again. So
fantastic. So I'm sorry, we're going to have to cut it off. According to our charter, we can't go past 9 o'clock. So those of you that are in the queue waiting, I'm sorry that we can't get to your questions. What I will tell you is please feel free. We have the general meeting on the second Wednesday of every month, and everyone here is welcome to come. We'd like to invite whichever counselor gets elected to please come back and celebrate with us, and we can ask more in-depth questions again. And does anyone have anything that they would like to see on the agenda for next month? Julie, you have anything you want to see on the agenda for next month? No?
Margaret?
Yes,
I'll email it to you. I'll email it to you if I come up with something.
Okay, maybe you could do a little spiel next month and tell us what you're doing.
Oh,
okay.
Okay.
Thea,
Okay.
what were you going to say?
Just a reminder, in August, Oakshire is hosting a fundraiser for us around sanitation and safety. And it will happen when our normal general meeting is. We'll have more information coming out, but thank you, Jeff. And thank you, Oakshire.
Yes,
Maybe
thank
we can
you
get some
very
trash cans
much.
and
And
beautification.
Janet, did you have something for our next meeting?
Well, I'd like to, I know they're having some of the in-person Whiteaker meetings, unlike the past where it's been at the Head Start there on North Grand, that annex building. Head Start's getting ready to use that as an office. I know that of late they've been using the Mission at times for meeting points. I was wondering if anyone could explore other venues for those meeting points.
Besides the Mission?
Yeah, for consideration.
Well, you know, we're more than happy to consider any venue, but the Mission has been fantastic with us. And
Yeah.
we do not have the equipment to run a hybrid meeting. And there's many people in our community that want a Zoom meeting. And we did do a poll before this to try to do an in-person meeting, and it didn't go over really well. But I will tell you that the Mission has fed us. If you haven't been there since before COVID, I would suggest that you go take a tour, because it's completely changed. They have all new programs, and they run the hybrid meeting for us. They have all the equipment and they feed us. They're teaching people a trade. They're teaching them how to work in a kitchen and get out and get an apartment and do all of that.
Well, I know it's a worthy organization. I was just concerned about the safety with meetings running into the evening, but I will look at it. I will make a visit there at the same hour as the meetings are and get a feel.
Fantastic. And we're going to continue to look into trying to get a hybrid meeting.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for coming. I really thank you, Cindy, for being here. Thank you, Janet, Barbie, Lindsay, you guys have been great. I know this was kind of a push, and there was a lot to it, and we really would like to invite back whoever wins. I would assume that any of you will come back, right?
Yes, and even those that aren't, even the ones that don't get the seat should come.
Yeah, if you live in the neighborhood, please, or if you don't, please always feel welcome to join our meetings. Does anyone else? We have one more minute. Any?
I had a question.
Yes, ma'am.
My name's Elena. I just wanted
Elena.
to echo Genevieve in the comment that she made about business incubation and support for small business. I'd love if we could go further into that at the next meeting. I'm a self-employed and small business individual in the WIT, and it sort of seems very impossible to open up a brick and mortar in the WIT. And so
Fantastic.
I'd like to talk about that further.
Do you have our email, right?
Yes.
Can you send us your ideas, and we'll make sure to put them on the agenda for the next general meeting?
Sure, that sounds great. Thanks.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. And we'll see board members next week.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.